The night after my husband's funeral, my daughter-in-law threw my suitcase into the garage and said, "From now on, you'll be sleeping with the dog." I didn't argue. I just smiled. My name is Evelyn Carter, 62 years old, a retired literature teacher from Charleston, South Carolina. I had just buried my husband, Thomas Carter, a quiet, disciplined man who believed that love was built in silence, not in words. For 42 years, we built a home filled with warmth, laughter, and little rituals that no one else knew. That morning, drizzle fell over Oak Hill Cemetery. Each raindrop hit the marble headstones with a hollow sound. Umbrellas formed a circle around Thomas's coffin while the organ played softly from the chapel. I stood close enough to smell the wet lilies, holding my shawl tightly. My son, Michael, sat in the front row, shoulders bent, tears hidden behind his hand. Beside him, his wife, Haley, did not shed a single tear. Her eyes were cold, scanning the faces of those who came to pay their respects, as if she were searching for something beyond grief. I had seen that look before. It was the look of someone calculating. When the priest said his final blessing, Haley's jaw tightened. Beneath the black veil, she looked almost relieved. A chill ran down my spine. It was not the weather. It was the moment I realized Thomas's death was not the end of my pain. It was only the beginning. After the ceremony, Michael walked me to the car. He kept saying, "Mom, you'll stay with us for a few weeks, all right? You shouldn't be alone." His voice cracked slightly, but Haley's tone was smooth. "Of course," she said. "We have plenty of space." But when we arrived at their home later that evening, my 3 brown leather suitcases were already sitting by the garage. The driveway glistened under the rain, and the air smelled of wet concrete and exhaust. I froze. Haley stood on the porch with her arms crossed. "What's going on?" I asked. She shrugged, her voice light but sharp. "Things have to change now, Evelyn. We need space, and the room upstairs is being remodeled. You can stay in the garage for a while. It's warm enough." Michael avoided my eyes. "It's just temporary, Mom. We'll fix things soon." I looked at him, the boy I had raised, the one who once promised to protect me. His silence cut deeper than her cruelty. Haley opened the garage door and stepped aside. "The room next to the dogs is empty," she said, as if offering a favor. Then she turned and walked inside. The echo of her heels faded through the rain. I stood there for a long moment, the wind tugging at my coat. The garage smelled of oil and rust. Water dripped from the roof in a steady rhythm. I pulled my suitcases into the corner, next to an old toolbox that still bore Thomas's initials. That night, I sat on a folding cot and stared at the ceiling. A single bulb flickered above me. My hands trembled, not from cold, but from the weight of what had just happened. I reached for the locket around my neck, the one Thomas gave me on our 30th anniversary, and whispered, "I'm still here." In that moment, something shifted inside me. I realized I was not just a grieving widow. I was the keeper of something far greater than Haley could ever imagine. Thomas had left behind more than memories. He had left behind a secret, a truth that would one day rewrite everything. The rain continued outside, soft and unending. I listened to it until the sound became steady like breathing. I closed my eyes and made a quiet promise to myself. "They think they've buried me with him," I thought, "but I'm still standing. And soon they'll see who truly owns this house." The following weeks blurred together like pages from a damp book. Morning light crept through the cracks of the garage door, spilling across the cold concrete where I slept. The air smelled of gasoline and dust. Every sound in the house, above the clinking of dishes, Haley's laughter, the faint hum of the television, reminded me of how far I had fallen inside my own home. Haley liked to keep me busy. "Evelyn, can you feed the dogs? Evelyn, can you clean the porch? Evelyn, can you pick up groceries while you're out?" She spoke my name as though it were a command. Michael rarely intervened. He worked late, came home exhausted, and avoided conflict. I understood his fear. He was still grieving too, and Haley had a way of twisting guilt into obedience. Each night, I wrote in a small leather notebook that I kept hidden beneath my pillow. Day 1, I wrote, "They think I'm powerless. Let them. Thomas once told me, when people mistake your silence for weakness, they're giving you their secrets." He had said that after firing an employee who tried to embezzle money from his company. I used to laugh at his calmness. Now I understood it. Rain continued to visit Charleston almost every night. The roof of the garage leaked, and I placed a bowl beneath the drip. It filled slowly, one drop at a time. Somehow the rhythm comforted me. It reminded me that patience always collects its reward. One afternoon, while cleaning the kitchen, I overheard Haley on the phone. Her voice was low but sharp. Yes, the transfer should be finalized by next month. Once it's done, we can start fresh in Dallas. My chest tightened. Transfer? Start fresh? I wiped the counter slower, pretending not to listen, but every word carved a deeper hole in my stomach. That evening, I went through the mail on the dining table when no one was home. I found 2 bank statements addressed to Michael new accounts I had never heard of. Then I saw a charge for a real estate consultation fee from a firm in Texas. My pulse quickened. I folded the papers neatly and slipped them inside my notebook. The next morning I called an old family friend, our lawyer, Mr. Caleb Morton. His voice was warm, patient. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "Thomas was very careful. He structured everything under a private trust, solely in your name. The house, the savings, the business shares, all of it is yours. No one can touch it without your consent." I sat there in silence, gripping the phone. A small, steady fire began to glow in my chest. After the call, I walked outside. The magnolia trees along the driveway shimmered with rain. I whispered, "You were always one step ahead, weren't you, Thomas?" I knew then that my silence would be my armor. I didn't need to shout, argue, or accuse. I only needed to wait and watch. Haley's behavior grew bolder as the days passed. She began hosting small gatherings in the house, acting like she owned the place. She would smile at me in front of her friends and say things like, "Evelyn is helping us through this transition." I'd simply nod. No one suspected that the woman serving coffee was, in fact, the rightful owner of everything around them. One evening, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat by the garage door with my notebook open. The moonlight slipped across the page. I wrote, "Day 19 silence gathers strength the way storms do. You don't see the damage until it arrives." A week later, Haley came home late, perfume thick in the air, whispering on her phone. I heard her laugh softly, a sound too careless to belong to guilt. I recognized that tone, the same one she used when she lied about caring for me. Something inside me hardened. I decided to start collecting proof. Each bill, each email, each careless word would become a thread. When woven together, those threads would expose the truth. I was no longer the helpless widow in the garage. I was the quiet storm forming on the horizon. As I closed my notebook that night, the rain began again, tapping gently on the metal roof. I smiled to myself and whispered, "Let it pour." The louder it gets, the easier it will be to hear the sound of their downfall. The next month arrived heavy with heat. The scent of jasmine hung over the yard, sweet and suffocating. By then, Haley had grown comfortable in her power. She gave orders without even pretending to ask. Michael had become a shadow in his own house, shuffling through days with his eyes down and his heart buried under guilt. I said little, but I watched everything. One Saturday morning, I was folding laundry in the hallway when Haley's phone rang on the counter. She was upstairs, so I hesitated only a moment before glancing at the screen. The name that appeared was Ethan Cole. I recognized it instantly. He was a young real estate broker who had once handled a small sale for Thomas years ago. My stomach tightened. Haley's voice drifted from the landing. "Yes, Ethan," she said softly. "Once the estate transfer clears, I'll file for divorce. We'll start fresh in Dallas. He's too soft to fight back." My hands froze over the towel I was folding. My heart thudded in my chest, slow and hard. I pressed the towel flat and kept listening until her footsteps moved away. That night, I opened the small box that contained Thomas's old phone. It still worked. I charged it, cleaned the camera lens, and told myself that silence alone was no longer enough. Proof would be my language now. The next morning, I followed Haley when she left for what she called her yoga class. She was dressed too elegantly for exercise, silk blouse, lipstick perfectly drawn. Her silver SUV rolled out of the driveway, and I caught the next bus to downtown Charleston. I found her parked outside the Argonaut Hotel. She didn't see me as she stepped inside, laughing into her phone. I slipped into the lobby, pretending to browse a rack of brochures. Moments later, Ethan Cole appeared in a gray suit. He kissed her cheek. I turned slightly and lifted Thomas's phone. The small click of the camera was drowned by the sound of traffic outside. I recorded them as they walked to the hotel cafe, holding hands like a couple who believed the world was blind. After 10 minutes, I left quietly. My legs trembled, but my breath came steady. On the bus ride home, I replayed the video, the image grainy but clear enough to capture the truth. Every secret Haley had buried was now a weapon in my hands. That evening, when Haley returned home, she hummed softly, tossing her purse on the table. I was sitting in the kitchen, polishing silverware. She smiled faintly, too sweet to be genuine. "Long day?" I asked. She blinked, cautious for half a second, then shrugged. "Just yoga." You know how exhausting peace can be. I nodded and smiled back, the way a cat watches a bird that has not yet seen the trap. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I crept into the office. Haley's laptop was open on the desk, still glowing. Curiosity pulled at me like a tide. I scrolled through her emails. There it was, a thread with the subject line, "Estate Transfer Update." The sender was David Carrera, an attorney in Dallas. His message read, "Once the assets are transferred, proceed with the divorce papers. Ensure the mother-in-law doesn't interfere." My throat went dry. I printed the emails, took photos of the screen, and saved the files on a private cloud drive Thomas once used. My fingers shook, but my heart felt light. The pieces were falling into place. Before closing the laptop, I noticed a draft message she had not sent yet. It said simply, "Don't worry. The old woman won't last long. She's barely eating. Soon we'll be free." I stared at those words for a long time, the letters burning into me like fire. Then I hit save and walked back to the garage. I sat on my cot and opened my notebook. The moon was high and sharp through the small window. "Day 43, I wrote. "The snake has revealed its skin." As I put the pen down, I felt something unexpected, not rage, but calm. Because now I no longer had to imagine justice. I could build it, brick by brick. I lay back, listening to the steady drip from the roof. For the first time since Thomas's funeral, I smiled without pain. The silence that once trapped me had become my greatest ally. Soon it would speak louder than any scream. 2 days later the storm arrived, not the one in the sky, but the one I had been building inside me. The morning began quietly, birds on the fence, the smell of coffee in the air, but I could feel something shifting. My notebook lay open on the table beside a neat stack of papers, photos, and one small flash drive. Every secret Haley had hidden was now gathered there, waiting for its stage. Michael came home early that afternoon, his eyes heavy with confusion. He had been sorting through old boxes in Thomas's office when he found a sealed envelope. He handed it to me, trembling. "Mom, I think you should see this." Inside was Thomas' original will, clear and simple. Every property, every account, every asset remained under my name. There was no mention of transfer rights, no shared ownership, nothing that tied our lives to Haley's schemes. I watched the color drain from my son's face as he read it aloud. Before I could speak, Haley entered the room. Her heels clicked sharply on the hardwood. She froze when she saw the papers. Her voice rose, sharp and cold. "What is this? You went through my files? You're both insane." Michael looked at her, broken. "Haley, did you know about this? Did you lie to me about the estate?" She turned on me instead, her eyes blazing. "You think you can trick us, old woman? You've been hiding things, playing poor to make us pity you." I stayed seated, calm, my fingers resting on the flash drive. "No, Haley," I said softly. "I wasn't hiding anything. You just never thought to ask the right questions." I handed her a folder. Inside were the printed emails, the photos from the Argonaut Hotel, and a copy of her messages with Ethan Cole. Her hands shook as she flipped through the pages. Her voice cracked. "You invaded my privacy." I smiled faintly. "You invaded my home." Michael's expression collapsed into disbelief. You cheated," he whispered. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. I plugged the flash drive into the laptop and played the video. The grainy image filled the screen. Haley in the cafe, laughing as Ethan kissed her hand. Michael's breath caught. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the computer fan. Haley stepped back, her voice trembling. "You can't use this, it's illegal. You'll ruin everything." I stood then, steady and unhurried. "No, dear, you ruined everything the moment you forgot who I am." I turned to my son. "Michael, your father trusted me with everything he built. I wanted you to have peace, not pain. But peace cannot grow where deceit takes root." Tears welled in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have protected you." I touched his hand gently. "You still can." Haley suddenly lunged forward, grabbing the documents, but Michael stopped her. "Enough, Haley," he shouted. "I can't believe I ever let you near her." She glared at both of us, her mascara running. "You'll regret this," she spat. "I have lawyers." I picked up my phone, calm as the tide. "Caleb," I said, "please activate the asset protection clause. Change every lock by tonight." Haley froze. "What are you talking about?" I met her eyes. The house, the company shares, the accounts, they've all been under my name since before Thomas passed. You've been living here as my guest, not my heir. Her face crumpled as the truth settled in. I continued, quiet but firm. You'll leave now, Haley. You have 1 hour to collect your things. The security system will reset after that. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her fury melted into disbelief. For the first time she looked small. Michael turned away, unable to meet her eyes. I watched her walk down the hall, slamming doors, muttering curses under her breath. When the front door finally shut behind her, the silence that followed felt like sunlight after a long storm. Michael sank into a chair, head in his hands. What will you do now, Mom? He asked softly. I smiled. I'll do what I should have done long ago, live on my own terms. That evening, I walked through each room slowly. The air felt cleaner somehow. I paused by the piano Thomas used to play and pressed one key. The note echoed through the house, low and steady. I whispered into the quiet, Thomas, it's over. She's gone. Then I turned off the lights, one by one, until only the faint glow of the hallway remained. For the first time in months, I climbed the stairs to my own bedroom. The bed smelled of lavender and old books. I lay down and closed my eyes. Outside, the rain began again, soft and distant. But this time it sounded different, not like grief, but like peace returning home. Months passed, and the seasons changed as if the earth itself was exhaling after holding its breath too long. The house grew quiet again, not the silence of sadness, but the kind that lets you hear your own thoughts without pain. I sold the old furniture that carried too many ghosts and moved to a smaller coastal home in Florida, near a stretch of white sand called Azure Bay. It was the place Thomas always dreamed of retiring to, a place where the waves met the shore like an old friend returning home. Each morning I walked barefoot along the water, the salt wind tangling my gray hair. I could still hear Thomas's voice sometimes, carried faintly in the rhythm of the waves, live with grace, Evelyn. Even when no one deserves it. I began volunteering at the local community center, teaching reading to immigrant nurses preparing for their exams. Their laughter filled the rooms, and their gratitude softened the corners of my solitude. I wasn't just healing, I was living again. Michael visited often with his children. They would help me cook gumbo, chase seagulls, and sit with me at sunset, their laughter spilling into the sea air. One evening, as we watched the sun melt into gold, Michael whispered, "Thank you for forgiving me, Mom." I smiled. Forgiveness isn't a gift for others, son. It's the key that unlocks your own heart. Haley never returned. The last I heard, she had moved to another state. One day a short text appeared on my phone, "I'm sorry." I looked at it for a while, then pressed delete, not out of anger but peace. That night, I opened my notebook one last time. My handwriting had grown steadier. I wrote, "Revenge is not about winning, it's about reclaiming peace without losing your soul." I placed the notebook on the shelf, blew out the candle, and let the ocean sing me to sleep. Because sometimes justice doesn't roar. It whispers in the sound of waves against the shore. When I look back now, I realize that revenge was never truly the goal. What I wanted was to be seen to remind the world, and myself, that dignity doesn't disappear with age or grief. For months I thought silence was weakness, but silence, I learned, can be a storm when it holds the truth. It gathers strength quietly until the moment it finally speaks. If you had met me then, the woman in the garage, sitting beside a leaking roof, you might have thought my story ended there. But life has a strange way of circling back to those who endure with patience. Every wound, every insult, every tear became a brick in the wall that now shelters my peace. I still visit Charleston sometimes. The magnolias bloom as beautifully as they once did. But I no longer walk past the old house with bitterness. I walk past it with gratitude, knowing that even betrayal can be a teacher if you listen closely enough. Now, when people ask me how I survived, I tell them this. You don't fight darkness by becoming darker, you fight it by standing still until the light returns. And it always does. If my story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to stand tall again. Tell me in the comments, have you ever found strength in silence? Like, share, and subscribe to The Art of Revenge. Because sometimes the quietest voice tells the most powerful story.